Well, it's another weekend coming up, and another area of low pressure is moving in from the Atlantic. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Hogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is enjoying their day so far. Of course, we've passed hump day, so we're getting closer and closer to another weekend. But another weekend of wind and rain is upon us, unfortunately. It looks as if could it be the fourth weekend in a row where we've had low pressure, wind, rain, unseasonably disappointing conditions for the midst of summer? It just is like a broken record, isn't it? After, of course, the wettest July on record for Northern Ireland, sixth wettest on record for the British Isles, and several spots regionally was wettest on record as well. So, of course, just a few days ago, we had the deepest area of low pressure for the British Isles, I think, anyway, since 1985, and it looks as if we've got another unusually deep area of low pressure moving in for the upcoming weekend. Looks as if Saturday will be the coolest, wettest, windiest day. Sunday will be a day of improvement as that area of low pressure pulls away to the east. So this is off the GFS chart here. This is the overview. We've got that northerly airflow at the moment, keeping things relatively fresh, and we've got plenty of shower activity around as of today, of course. And then we get a little bit of a bump in the isobars. We get this little brief spell of higher pressure. I say higher pressure as opposed to high pressure, in fact, because it's all short lived. We've got this next feature moving in. It will deepen as it makes an approach on the UK, as has been the case in recent times with a very lively jet stream. And as you can see here, a spell of heavy rainfall moving across Ireland, Northern Ireland, and then eventually into England and Wales. Scotland will get some rain as well, heavy rainfall and easterly winds. It seems like a broken record, this storm track coming in across Ireland, across England and Wales. And, even though we've got still unsettled conditions further north, it looks as if the best conditions during the course of Saturday will be across the far north of the British Isles. But you see here this area of low pressure moving through mid Wales, the Midlands of England, and then pushing towards East Anglia here. Underneath that centre of low pressure, we will see a spell of fairly heavy rainfall, but also embedded thunderstorms beneath that centre of low pressure. Also, need to watch out for spiralling bands around that centre, bringing a spell of fairly heavy, persistent wind driven rain across some parts of the south, but also across northern England, like we've seen with the previous area of low pressure. That, like I said, moves eastwards latter half of Saturday. Into Sunday, we get another little bit of a break, but we do have another spell of shower activity, of course. But in the legacy of these areas of low pressure, they're leaving behind relatively cooler aloft, and of course, with cooler aloft, warming it at the surface at this time of the year with the strong sun, we do get development of fairly heavy showers, and of course, with a lack of wind, sometimes these showers can stick around for quite some time actually. And then, like I say, this next area of low pressure moves in during the early portion of next week here before things turn a little bit more interesting towards the end of next week. Now, there is indications that there is some, relatively strong warming taking place that will lift out of Spain and Portugal, France, and into the southern half of the British Isles towards the end of next week here. But it looks as if it's going to be a short lived event here, and therefore I wouldn't get overly enthusiastic with regards to a prolonged dry and warm spell. If you look at the latest from the GFS ensemble, and this has been the case, relatively cross model agreement here that this is the upcoming 5 day 2 meter temperature normally forecast off the GFS ensemble. And look at a large swathe of central and western and northwestern Europe is below average, firmly below average at that, especially over the near continent. If you notice here for the upcoming 5 day period, but even the 6 to 10, it is still below average. Notice here we may get a little bit of a above average in the 6 to 10 because this incorporates the potential warm spell towards the end of next week. But I think it is only a 1 or 2 day affair at best before more pressure, more low pressure moves in. Now, these areas of low pressure change characteristics slightly because we're going to start to see the trough gather to the west over the North Atlantic, and therefore the setup is different. With instead of having these systems coming across the British Isles, there's going to be a bit more of a glancing blow to the west and northwest of the UK. So, of course, with areas of low pressure to the west, their circulation means that they draw potentially some pretty hot, humid air coming up from the south. So we get a bit of a northwest to southeast contrast developing, a little bit more of a classic summer regime for the British Isles actually with this type of setup. But some of these areas of low pressure could wind up quite deep. They could get close to the UK and Ireland as well. So we could see, gale force winds in the northwest versus a lot warmer and drier conditions further south and east. So still open the question with regards to the exact situation with mid and late next week. But we certainly know that we are going to have more areas of low pressure dominating the pattern throughout the course of the upcoming weekend and into at least the first half of next week. But you notice here, even with the GFS ensemble, notice here, even the day 10 to 15, notice something. It's still average temperatures, not really firmly above average for the period between the 10th and the 15th across England. Below average, if you notice here, across Wales, southwest England, most of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, firmly below average still. And this is the time frame of that potential warm surge. And then as we continue to play through towards the very end of the period here, so this is the 14th through the 19th of August, if anything, it's average conditions. So the GFS ensemble, so this is all the runs that merge together to create a better idea, a better trend as to what happened. It's not showing this surge to suddenly above average temperatures, which is quite interesting here. If we look back at the upper air pattern here, this is the upcoming 5 days, and you can see here the deepest negative is to the east of the British Isles. We've got a little bit of region trying to kind of edge in towards the southwest here, but this is the current situation for the upcoming 5 day period. As we play through this loop, you notice here that any kind of region is across the southern half of the UK, if that. So it tries to come in across the south. Notice here we've got the negative to the north of the British Isles. And then as we push towards the end of the loop, you've got region to the northwest, you've got region over the near continent here. So it's not clear cut, it's not plain sailing with regards to where all of a sudden reversion to a warmer, drier situation. Let's have a look at the 850 temperature anomalies here, a good indicator of what type of air mass we're dealing with this type of chart. This is the 5,000 foot level temperatures. And what you've got here is the cool regime at the moment. The latest area of low pressure exits to the east. We've got that run of northerly winds here, just suppressing the temperatures and the potential warming. It's not overly cold, but we're not getting that build-up of warmth during the day as you would sometimes expect it during the early portion of August. It just essentially puts a lid on the level of warming that we may see. But what I'm seeing here, folks, is we've got this strong jet stream at the moment here. We've got this emergence of warm subtropical air and cold air, polar maritime air. Now, we've got this area of low pressure right in between, and that, of course, is where the jet stream is running at the moment here. What's interesting about this situation with regards to Saturday is it has some fairly warm air on the southern flank. We've got cooler air on the north and to the east of the system. As that gets closer to the British Isles here, you notice here it starts to tighten up. It does contain a little bit of warmer air to the south, but there's a fair amount of cooler, fresh air ahead of the system and to the north of the system. As that then barrels across, we've got that strong speed max of the jet stream roaring over the top. It looks as if that area of low pressure actually skips from the south side to the north side of the jet. That is what allows the system to become deeper as it engages with the colder north side of that jet stream, and that is what's allowing the feature to then deepen. As it crosses the UK, of course, we've got all the wind and rain associated with it. We could have 60, 70 mile an hour winds along exposed south and southwest facing coasts of England and Wales, possibly the far south of Ireland as well with this situation here. And then it's as we press into the early portion of next week, there's that cool fresh air behind that system. And then we've got more systems riding that boundary between the warm and the cold here. We've got the next feature comes in later on Monday into Tuesday, according to this run in the model here. Notice the amount of warm air that's getting lifted up into the far north of Scandinavia. That's quite interesting, actually. We've got this quite interesting multi-complex area of low pressure over Scandinavia that's bringing a lot of unsettled conditions here. But what it's actually doing is it's entraining very warm air out of the Caspian, out of the Turkey, up to the east side of that circulation. It's quite a broad, large area of low pressure actually, with multiple centres. But you notice here that that warm air is getting picked up way out to the east, northwards, and then over the top of that circulation, which is quite interesting. But in the same token, we've got an area of low pressure over the Norwegian Sea that is trying to drag down, sub-zero air at 850 into the British Isles here. So it's a complex situation developing as we press through next week. And this is where the models are so uncertain, because we've got a lot of heat energy associated with the system, and therefore it's hard to determine exactly the distribution of these air masses, warm and cold. And with these circulations that act essentially as wheels or stones in a river situation here, the air, if not the water, runs around these little stones and of course creates these different circulations. But notice here, as that trough and cold air gets drawn down over the North Atlantic, we've got that next area of low pressure winding up between the two air masses. But there's that warm air coming up during the course of Friday, 15 Celsius isotherm, 20 Celsius isotherm, edging into the southeast corner of England. But notice something, we've got a big contrast between the southeast and the northwest. Nearest the area of low pressure, wind, gale force winds potentially at that, heavy rainfall, possible thunderstorms in the further north and the further west over the UK and Ireland you go. Further south and east with sunshine, could easily get into the 30s with this type of situation. Does it last? Well, according to a lot of the model runs, it doesn't. It gets pushed out of the way, that circulation then moves east. Down comes more fresher air from the north. So it's a short-lived event here, it looks like, according to this model run. This is one GFS operational. We know that there's going to be multiple shifts around with regards to this, but it looks as if the warmth does not last. It is a very, very short-lived event indeed, which is quite interesting, of course. Let's have a quick look actually at the Levy Cowan's Tropical Tidbits site here, because this is very interesting here. So this is the situation back to Monday the 31st of July. What's interesting about this is we've got these areas of low pressure running the north side of the jet stream. Notice the track. It's going to start to see the jet pushing a little bit further south. Notice here the strength of that jet, because we've got quite a contrast between cold air to the north and warmer air to the south. That system that's coming up this upcoming weekend, this is actually here, by the way, to the south of the Canadian Maritimes. It is of a subtropical or tropical origin. And of course, as this was skipped through this loop, it's very, very interesting to see here. Notice the jet to the south, so we're in the cooler air across the bulk of England, Scotland, Ireland, and of course Wales. But you notice here that as that feature then engages with the jet stream, it gets entrained within the southern stream. Notice the strength of the jet increases over the North Atlantic. There's that system that comes through during the course of Wednesday. So, of course, Wednesday just gone, we had the deepest August area of low pressure since 1985. I believe I'm right in saying that. That is the feature there moving through on the north side of the jet. There's the system here. Keep a very close eye to this feature here. That 1010 millibar area of low pressure on the south side of the jet. That is our feature on Saturday that's going to bring all the trouble. Notice here it disappears briefly, but then reappears, and it actually becomes a deeper area of low pressure. But notice the position skips from the south side to the north side of the jet, so therefore that allows it to deepen quite considerably here. So trying to show you things, like I said, you're not necessarily seeing elsewhere, understanding a little bit more about the broader, bigger picture. It's a complex, of course, story, but I'm trying to depict some of the complexities of meteorology and show you in a little bit more layman's terms with regards to the majesty of the atmosphere and weather Ran out of time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Please like, share, and indeed subscribe. And I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.